We're calling the meeting of the Marshall County Regional Sewer District to order. And the first line of business is we do a roll call. We'll start down on your end, Christopher.
Present, Christopher Spear.
Debbie Palmer.
Brent Myers.
Thomas McFadden.
Diane Parsons.
Jay Stone.
Don Ecker.
Okay, everybody's present. And at this time, if there are members of the public that would like to comment, they have an opportunity to do so, but we would ask that they limit their comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to come forward and make a comment? Looks like we have no comments, so we will go on to the next item on our agenda to approve the meeting minutes of the January 10th, 2024 board meeting, which are in your packet.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I do,
Aye.
if I may, I do have a correction that should be made, I should say, under second page, B, section B, where it says, calls out Miller Pond. That should be Mill Pond.
Mill.
We can have that corrected.
Okay, with that correction, the minutes, all in favor?
I see.
Okay,
I didn't.
now, the next exciting thing on our agenda tonight is the financials and the claims approval, which are also in your board packet.
I make a motion that we approve the bills submitted.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Now we have Christopher Nussbaum to provide us with our legal counsel update.
So we will want to collect signatures on this from everybody on the claim.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need 2 more signature lines, but we can just wherever.
Can we each sign our own?
We want it all on one.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, why don't we start, can we just?
Yeah, start down with Chris
Okay.
and just pass it. That would,
Yep.
excellent idea.
All right, so in your packet, actually have these backwards. So we're gonna take up 5B first, which is the electronic funds transfer ordinance. One of the things that we want to be able to do is item A, which authorizes payment of certain pre-approved claims. So, for example, one of the items that Debbie's got now are invoices for your surety bonds, which we'll go over here in a moment as well. And the, insurance and a lot of these other items that are listed out in the resolution, license or permit fees, insurance premiums, utility payments when they have them, maintenance service agreement, rent payments, bond or coupon payments when bonds are issued, payroll at some point, state and federal taxes. All of these items are allowed to be paid prior to a meeting. They just have to still be approved at the next meeting, and they'll be done so again on a monthly claim approval form. So some of these items haven't been paid, and we didn't have a check number, but in the future, when pre-approved claims are done, they'll be on here, there'll be a claim number, and there'll actually be a check written because it'll have been done in between board meetings. To be able to do that, though, you have to have a resolution authorizing the payment of certain pre-approved claims, and to have a authorization or a resolution to authorize the pre-approval of certain claims, you have to have an ordinance that allows you to accept payment by electronic funds transfer or to use or accept credit card payments. So the first item that we have is a very simple ordinance. Many times we actually won't have a standalone ordinance in the future because we will bake this into the district's rate ordinance, because that's where we'll say, hey, here are the rates and charges that are to be paid for the services provided by the district. Also, you can make your payments by electronic funds transfer, or you can pay by credit card, and we can collect a convenience fee as prescribed by state statute. So that's the ordinance that you have in front of yourself. In the future, again, like I said, we'll put this into your rate ordinance, but since we don't have one, and we need to have one to adopt a pre-approval of certain claims resolution, this is step one. So we would submit this to the board for discussion and then adoption of the ordinance.
Makes sense to me.
You want to reference an ordinance number in the motion?
Yeah, so the ordinance number will be 2024-0201.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2024-02-01.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ordinance is passed.
We need to sign.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this down so Christopher can sign. And then the next item after passing that ordinance is that in order to allow and authorize the payment of pre-approved claims, we have to have that ordinance. The board has to have direction to, in this case, the treasurer to make those payments. And that's what this resolution number 2024-02, and that'll be 01 as well, because it's a resolution and not an ordinance. So that's what this document is, the resolution is approving. And we would submit that for discussion and approval by the board.
Come on, Lloyd. I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-02-01.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I will pass this
And
down as well.
I also signed to attest.
Yes, you also signed to attest. All right, the last item that I have on the legal counsel update, which is also along with JPR, is that to continue marching forward on our deadlines, in order to ultimately adopt the preliminary engineering report, if we would like to adopt that at a regularly scheduled meeting, we need to have a hearing before that. And after the hearing, we have to have we have to allow for public comment for 5 days before the PER can be adopted by the Board of Trustees. So the earliest, or the latest, I should say, that we could have the PER hearing and still adopt it on March 13th at the next regularly scheduled meeting would be March 6th, one week before. Only one member of the board or administrator of the district, and since there are no administrators of the district, a member of the board, needs to attend the hearing. Obviously, all the board members are welcome to attend the hearing, but we do just need to discuss when that makes sense to have and at what time. We would propose that March 6th is a day that makes sense. Jennifer's checked with Angie, and the building is available at 5 and at 6. It's up to the board what time. We checked in the afternoon, early evening, because this is an important hearing to have. It's important to be accessible to the public. We don't want it to have it, at a time where people, would have difficulty attending. And so we generally shade towards having it in the evening hours, so that if people want to attend, they can. And that's what we just need, the discussion of the board and any questions, and then just a motion on when to schedule the PER hearing.
Well, I would definitely plan on being at the meeting on March 6th. So at least there'll be one board member there. Obviously, any of you that want to come are certainly welcome to come. I would almost suspect that a 6 o'clock time is probably better in terms of, promoting, people coming. 5 o'clock probably for members of the general public is probably cutting it a little too close.
Agree.
I agree. 6 o'clock.
Everybody kind of, okay, so I think, the consensus of the group is, let's do it on March 6th, but do it at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And I take it would be in this room.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll put together a notice that needs to be published in the paper. It has to be published 10 days before. So we'll get on that. I'll get on that tomorrow, just because there's a regular paper in Marshall County. Some of the other more rural counties, they only accept things on certain days, and they only publish legal notices on certain days, and usually it's once a week. So if it's published, we just need to make sure that we're hitting the date, because we'll need to have it published not later than the 26th, 23rd.
Have you worked with the Plymouth pilot before?
I have, doing estates in the county, so we'll get that published and get that out.
So do we need to have a motion to approve this?
Yeah,
public
I
hearing
have a
date?
motion to approve and hold the PER hearing at March 6th at 6 o'clock in this room, 122 West Jefferson Street, room 203, Plymouth, Indiana.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
All right. And that is all I have for the riveting legal counsel update.
I guess the next thing on the agenda is the insurance committee update. And at 5:30, we had an insurance committee meeting. Brenda and Don and myself, along with Chris, participated in that. And we had our insurance consultant on the call, Nikki Galbraith, that went through the directors and officers liability insurance proposed terms. Nikki mentioned that this particular carrier, Fidelity Indemnity Insurance Company, is an excellent company. They have a good rating, but they're also familiar with our business and have worked with sewer districts. And unlike some companies, actually understand that we're a mere startup at this point, but they're nonetheless interested and willing to provide the coverage. She also mentioned on the call that the premium, which is an annual premium, $3,032, is actually an excellent price in this space, and it provides us, with an initial $1 million of directors and officers liability coverage. One thing she did mention, as we start having operations and things really start to happen, that those limits of liability, they will advise us on whether they need to be adjusted, and they generally always are adjusted upward, whether it's $2 million, $3 million, et cetera. She did answer and confirm that the D&O coverage does include cost of defense for all the board members in case we are sued. I think the committees, at the conclusion of it, we decided that we would go along with this, accept it, and, we want the board, of course, to approve it so that within 30 days, we can approve payment, because from the time you have it bound, which could be as early as tomorrow, you have 30 days to pay it. I think it's going to have a coverage date beginning March 1st, which is, I think, fine, because we know we haven't had any operations. And to go back and try to get them to bind coverage from the very beginning doesn't really make a lot of economic sense at this point, because there could be some additional cost in that, and we really don't need that. So, does anybody have any questions about it? I think Brenda, Don, and I were comfortable with it. Do we have a motion to approve the D&O coverage?
I make a motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. So I guess, Chris, do you want to contact them tomorrow and tell them we're ready to bind coverage?
Yep, on March 1.
Okay, very good.
On March 1.
Okay. Who's going to be providing an update on the bond ban ordinance?
I think this was just informational.
Okay.
for you.
Oh, that's correct. And they're supposed to be providing us with responses to our RFP by February 19th. So we're going to know very, very quickly if there's banks that are interested in doing it. And I was actually, there was a large number of banks that the RFP went out to. It was much more extensive list than I would even have guessed.
I'd never heard of a couple of them.
Yeah, I didn't either. But anyway, so that, it sounds like we're gonna know on February 19th how quickly we're gonna be moving forward.
Yeah, I believe, look at my calendar. So they're due at 11 a.m. And we have a call scheduled to review them at 1.
Now, who's gonna be reviewing those? It's gonna be,
Yeah, so I think you're on it, Tom. We'll report it to the full board. But, so when you adopted the ban ordinance,
yes.
the board authorized Tom to do everything to essentially take this all the way to closing. And so, yeah, you're on that, Tom, so we'll all be just discussing what the response is, and Baker Tilly will advise, because depending on whether or not they have a lump sum draw or they've got a draw they followed our draw schedule and they'll allow us to draw on it. Some will have different interest rates. We'll have to make a decision on what one is the best from a cost of bond
I would think
perspective.
that drawing it down over time would be more effective, but who knows?
Yeah, usually you have a higher rate when you do that than
Instead
on the
instead of
lump
when you
sum.
draw it down all at once in a lump sum.
Right. So then it's, how does that hit? Is it better to have, a little bit higher rate, but not be paying on the whole amount the entire time? So we'll know in a little less than a week.
So you'll send out an invite to that meeting?
Yeah, you already have it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll forward it to you again.
Okay. Okay, well, now I guess we move on to our engineering update.
Good evening. I don't have a lot of really exciting things to share because we're, right in the middle of a couple of pretty important things here with the public hearing coming up and things of that nature. But I wanted to mention or touch base on a couple of brief things. One is that we called it a project tracking tool or it's a tracking spreadsheet that you had emailed about. We've got that, at least in my view, about 50% ready to hand to you and ask you if you think we forgot anything. There's a couple pieces of information I was waiting on others for. So as soon as I have that, I'll just broadcast it, and then we'll just maintain it, from here to the end of this first
Yeah.
project.
I just think it's very helpful in
Oh, yeah.
terms of all of us. I was a transactional lawyer, and I used to do very, very large transactions. Sometimes they would take 2 to 3 years to complete. And so we had a master transaction checklist of each and every task, and then as tasks were completed, so everybody could see what was going on. And I appreciate you putting that together for us, Ken.
Yeah, we do that internally, so, it makes, and just so we can share it if and when we're asked. Typically, it's centered on only our part of a project, but your email kind of made us look at each other and go, well, why not just include all the other milestones as well? Because even if we're not in charge of a particular milestone, we're always involved in it. We always know what's going on with it. So we can keep all that in one spot, and I think it'll benefit us as much as it does you guys, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll be the owner of the progress chart then?
Yeah, I mean, if that's okay. We'll just
Absolutely.
maintain it.
Yeah, I don't
Just
want
maintain
to
it.
see 5 or 6 people involved.
Don, you're going to be in charge of it.
If nominated, will not run if elected.
That's why you got to show up to meetings, because you get nominated for
Yeah.
things when you're not here.
And then,
That's happened before.
All the time.
the other thing that we probably need to, start rolling on is, I don't know what words are the best ones to use, but start working toward a final interlocal agreement with the city of Plymouth with regard to treatment services for PSA number 1. The district plan, AKA the PER, has preliminary numbers in there and recommendations based on those preliminary numbers, and those preliminary numbers are based on certain preliminary information and assumptions or information that the city's already kind of provided, some assumptions based on how we've seen it work out, in the interest of everyone involved in other similar situations, et cetera, et cetera. But, now it's time to really kind of finalize that. I know that was mentioned a month ago with regard to, just putting together a quick summary memo to kind of filter out the pertinent information from the district plan so that we don't all have to keep flipping through it to get to the parts of it that are important, specific to this particular topic. That is also I would say I have that at about 80%. There's a couple pieces of information I'm wanting to clarify and make sure that I have cited properly before I broadcasted it. But I did have a unofficial but in-person meeting, was it last week or the week before? I think it was last week, with the city mayor. And just to kind of, hey, this is going on, because he's a relatively new mayor, and answered a few of his kind of preliminary questions. It was a very positive meeting. I came away from it with no feelings of this is not eventually going to work out just fine. But I would like to have a follow-up meeting with maybe Mr. McFadden present on behalf of the district as an actual district official instead of just a district consultant. But before we do that, I'd like to get that information and we can bring it with us and you can help with our, guide our discussion.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that Chris's firm and the
Yep.
city attorney will be involved in documenting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll put together probably an interlocal agreement memorandum of understanding at the very least.
New attorney.
And you have the name of the new city attorney,
Huyen?
Jeff Huyen? Jeff
I
Huyen.
had the old one.
Yes, John Cerisi has moved on to private practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jeff Huyen took over January 1. And of course, you mentioned Mayor Listenberger now.
Yeah, he was actually present at our meeting and seemed like a really nice guy, really knowledgeable guy, so. The one thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not qualified to say whether or not this is an issue or not, but Mr. Nussbaum is. But, the sewer district and the city of Plymouth, I believe, have the same financial advisor. So, when it comes to deciding what the best method is for calculating their existing treatment rate, I don't know if that's a conflict or not, but we probably need to hammer that out at some point.
And we do use Baker Tilly. So,
A lot of people do, because they're good at what they do. I personally don't fully understand, how it could really be a conflict, because it's just a matter of looking at numbers, and the numbers are what they are. But,
Yeah, I'm not so certain we'd have a problem with it.
yeah,
No.
It's a small town.
and I'm not asking for an answer on that
No, no.
tonight, I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention it.
Who is that person? Do we know?
I'm not sure who the city's assigned person from Baker Tilly is off the top of my head. I don't
It
know.
may not be the same, it may not be Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there's got to be other
And if they
small
already-
Oh, I'm
towns
sure.
Yeah.
who have this same situation.
Oh, I'm sure.
and-
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a matter of seeing how someone else has handled the same situation.
Yeah, I don't see that I see it as a calculation, it's not negotiations.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had to deal with the same thing from like an engineering perspective, and, where we're kind of on both sides of the same table, but if the goals are all the same, and, again, the numbers are what they are, even in what we do, there's not,
Yeah, when I practiced law, we used to be involved in situations like that. We would just get consents from people and,
sure.
We've only ever ran into wholesale rate issues when someone's just not being transparent about how they calculated it, not when we're actually doing a calculation. And there's, like anything, there's decisions and professional judgment to be made. And so as long as everybody's being informed about how you may have calculated it this way versus the other, then it's just, all the information's there. We don't need the advisor's got a recommendation, and the parties are free to fight about it.
and in terms of the March 6th public hearing, are you going to be coming to that hearing?
Yes.
He'll be running it.
You'll be running it. So your dad's kind of, what's he, taking it easy?
He's still working, just not full-time. not every day.
Because I remember the first hearing I came to when they were talking about the sewer district, he was the presenter.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, he did a nice job.
he does.
It'll be very similar to that
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah, no, that went very, very well.
It'll be a 5 to 10 minute explanation of, you know, the project that we're looking at right now, because this is a public hearing specific to that. It's not specific to the entire county study that we did. Just kind of hitting the highlights. And my goal usually is to get to Q&A as quickly as possible, because that's often the most time-consuming aspect.
Sure.
The other thing that we try and, we won't hopefully run into this, but we ran into it in other PRs, is there's going to be a question that generally comes up is, how much is this going to cost us on a rate?
That's the tricky one.
And that is, we will have a separate rate hearing
Right.
for the rate. So this is just on the cost and preliminary engineering.
Hard to
report.
know at this point because we know what the construction costs are going to be.
And we don't know what our wholesale costs will be, so.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only tricky part of the public hearing at that phase, is you don't want to not be helpful, but
You don't want to get,
if you say a number out loud, that number gets
Embedded.
yeah,
embedded.
yeah.
Well, I think that the answer can also be, we just don't have enough information yet, and
Yeah.
the actual construction isn't imminent.
Because that is the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
we
agree.
just don't have enough information
Yeah.
yet
Do
to
you know how
throw a
much you're
number
gonna
out
be
there.
making in 2
Yep.
years?
And nothing that hearing binds us to continue, right? We'll have better information, not to say that we don't want to continue, we don't want to provide that service, right? But when construction bids come back, ultimately, we're going to be able to have a really good idea what that does to our rate. And then that's a board decision. Are these construction bids appropriate for us to do the project? So.
That's why you try to be as smart and as informed as you can be with all of your estimates. That's all you can do until we get to that point.
Have you anything else you want to talk about tonight, Ken?
Oh, I have lots of stuff I'd love to talk about.
Oh, the one thing I was going to ask about.
It's not really related to this district.
The one thing I was going to ask about, we talked about this last time, when's the soonest aerial photographs can be done?
Oh, we're going to be doing those in March.
In March?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep
And hopefully by then
And
we'll
you
have money.
should know that we're doing your project will be the first one in our history that we're doing that in-house.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, I have a picture on my phone from one of our graduate surveyors who was all excited today because a LiDAR drone arrived via GPS, or via UPS.
That has GPS.
Then we have our gentleman that we bought it from is coming up later this month, and we're actually going to spend a couple days on this project with the new equipment to start to learn how it works.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
do we get a discount for training?
We're not charging you for our training.
Can we see what it looks like so we don't shoot it out of the sky? while it's-
Good question. Good
Yeah,
point.
we might have a few crazies at our lake that might do that.
Right?
Well, I mean, here's one thing you might find interesting that I sure did about it, is I thought it would require a staff member to be in visual sightline proximity of it with a, remote control in their hand. But it just goes to show how, I guess, old-fashioned I am even on that technology, because how that works is we go into our GIS-based map that we've already built for the project that is on Indiana State Plane X, Y, and Z locational datum, and we draw a polyline in there of the area that we're interested in collecting the data and taking the photos on. So it's going to be generating a point cloud topographic map of the area, but also taking aerial photographs as it's going. And it uses that geometry to decide its own route. And so it may as well be magic as far as I'm concerned. But, yeah, no, that's, we're going to be doing that in March. That's the goal.
Good.
Awesome.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to come before this meeting this evening? If not, I thank all of you for giving up your Valentine's Day. And do we have a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion, we close.
All in favor? Aye.
One more check to sign.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Oh, got them all.